Hey, I'm Shubham. I'm the founder of Alchem Data, and I welcome you all to the first episode of the Data Chronicles by Shubham. In this podcast series, we'll be connecting with a lot of decision makers across D2C and retail industry in an attempt to understand how data insights influence problem solving and decision making in these organizations. In this episode, we'll be connecting with Saarthak, who's a dear friend and has worked in growth roles across major organizations such as Swiggy and Licious. Hey Saarthak.
Hey Shubham, hi.
Hi. ठीक है तो we'll start with a very basic personal part of things. I don't want this to be isolated just to the professional bit of it. We'll go into the personal bits of it. I want people to be able to connect with you as a person, and then we'll go into the professional bits of it, right? We'll keep this as a very free flowing session.
Sure.
We just want this to be something that people can look back at and understand that this is the depth of a professional, and then understand where the data part stems in from. Data is something that is, let's keep it secondary. Let's not bring it as a primary part of it. We'll obviously see it coming in different parts, right? ठीक है, तो I actually have a notebook. I'll try to stick to some topics, but then we'll deviate from that as and when, right?
Sure.
So I think the first part is a quick introduction maybe about you as a person.
Sure. As far as I remember, right after my master's, I got placed in an IT company. And in the initial month or two is when I realized that I require something that is much more faster in nature, right? And that's when, at that point of time, I was vying to be a part of a company called Swiggy, which everyone is aware of now. And that was my dream company at that point of time. And so I shifted gears, and fortunately enough, I got an opportunity to work with Swiggy. Post my MBA, that is where my real work started, so as to say, right? And in all honesty, the initial jolts that we all get when we start our careers, right? Because there's a steep learning curve, you've just entered the job market.
Right.
One thing which I realized very soon was if you don't have numbers or data to back anything, it's always a he said, she said kind of a situation, right?
Right, yeah.
So I learned it the hard way, to be very honest. But I was lucky enough to have some really good managers, some mentors early in my career,
Right.
who taught me how important it is to, have quantitative insights into everything. I might be using such fancy words or some very decent words right now, but at that point of time, it was like a new student who's just graduated and learning all these things and having those conversations कि हाँ यार ये बहुत important है. तो थोड़ा सा वो bias आएगा. At that point of time, I was not this polished that I might seem right now.
That's fair.
But हाँ, शुरू में बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें थी जो सीखी. In fact, during my masters also, I remember I had a professor. वो हमेशा एक चीज बोलते थे, and I still remember it by heart. He said, "In God we trust. For everything else, there's data." तो ये बात मुझे आज तक याद है.
Nice.
And मैंने काफी बार I've used this in a lot of rooms. So in a very, I think in a very subtle way, it communicates that, okay, I do respect you as an individual, as a professional or whatever, right? But for everything else, there is data and numbers that we'll go by, right?
Nice.
So I remember that, and I think as an, every day passes by, I see the challenges that I face if there's no data, right? I've worked with Swiggy for about 3 years in different roles. And Swiggy fortunately has no dearth of data, right? So I was drowning in data, in the sense trying to make sense of what is working, what is not working. And to my fascination, I loved it. I found comfort in numbers because you walk into rooms, you walk into discussions. If you have numbers to back it, people are convinced easily, at least, when you're trying to make a point basis your gut feeling or hunch, right? As an individual, I believe when you progress, there are certain things that come very intuitively, but it's more so because early in your career you've taken decisions backed by data, by numbers, right? So yeah, I think this is a very important thing, and till now, like after 7 years in the industry, I've worked with various startups, and wherever I've found numbers and data, I've found comfort, I've found success. As a person who's contributing to a team or a project or an experiment,
Right.
or for my own personal growth
Sure.
or personal development as well. So I think it's the backbone of anything and everything. I think there's no escaping from it, or there's no beating around it. So I think this is a very crucial or critical to any business, be it like a startup or any company. So this is a very interesting and exciting topic. So I can go on and on.
Fair.
But yeah, happy to hear your thoughts as well.
Okay, fair. I'll actually take a step back before going into the data bit, right? I want to intentionally stay away from it.
Okay.
So we'll start from a little bit personal about you, right? As in, tell me a little about your childhood. How were you as a kid?
As a kid,
Who were you as a kid?
Okay, as a kid, I was a very shy, very introvert guy, and until now, I'm a big foodie, and I still am a foodie. So I've been that since a kid, and I was a very golu molu child. Yeah, I was all my childhood. I've struggled with weight issues.
Right.
I was that guy. Just go, when you play with friends, you make the goalie because he's the fat kid. So I used to be that person, right? Other than that, I was a very shy, very reserved kind of a person, and had very few friends, and was very lethargic. So that was there, and and I've always been very close to nature.
Okay.
So since a very early age, so I lived in Indore for about 3 years.
Oh, nice.
And we had our own parks surrounded. Like our home was surrounded by small parks which were ours, right? So in my childhood, like till third grade, in the evenings, that's all I used to do, like watering the plants, playing in the grass, etc. So that's why I think I have a very close bond with nature and all.
Very rooted connection with.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I think that still holds.
Okay.
Even when I, run astray or I'm feeling very stressed, I find really good comfort if I just go for a walk surrounded by trees. I love trees, yeah. I love animals, so that way I'm very connected to nature, and
I think that's something that for the years that we've been friends, right? I think that we've had some very amazing trips together, and the one very good one that we did for Coorg, Gokarna, Goa. So one thing that resonated a lot with me between the both of us was the fact that, whenever there used to be sunset, we used to just part our ways, be with ourselves, be with nature, and it used to be such a surreal time, right? As in, the both of us used to come back to each other after like the sun has set. We've spent like half an hour, 1 hour just roaming around, and both of us are super calm, and there is no need for us to pretend. There is no need for us to, say that kitna awesome sunset tha ya wo sab kuch tha. It's just as simple as, just being there, just being calm and nice and present. So
I totally agree, dude. Like, I mean, the most beautiful part of it was we never had to communicate this to each other. It was very unsaid, very implied ki, we want to enjoy this in solitude.
Yeah.
And it just happened very organically. Yeah. वो तो आज के time में it's very rare to have that connect with someone.
Right.
Where you're both on a very similar wavelength and you can enjoy similar things without having to explicitly ask for something like that. So भाई मैं भीग रहा हूँ.
The city, हम लोगों को जो city इतनी पसंद है, it's showing its nice colors.
Yeah, this is nature blessing me.
आ जाते हैं.
But यहाँ बहुत पानी आएगा अभी और. But ठीक है, let's continue.
Fair. Okay, now I'll jump into the adulthood, right? So I have a question. What do you believe people see in you when they look at you?
Okay, I think when people look at me, and this is basis few feedbacks that I've gotten explicitly or through some people, I think a lot of people get this feeling from me that I have a very sorted life. They believe I know what I want from life to the T, exactly what I seek, where I want to be, where I see myself, etc. So I think this is a very common feedback that I've always got from people.
So rain played not necessarily a spoil sport, but yes, we had to shift ourselves inside, and we'll continue.
Okay.
So yes, we were on the question of what do you believe people see when they see you?
So where was I? I forgot.
I think people see you as someone who has his life sorted.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So I think, like I was telling you, I think that's one common feedback that I've got from people. that they see me as someone who has his life figured out to a great extent. I think I've always been someone who's very clear on what he wants. Always been a planner all my life, and fairly played out well till now at least.
Sure.
But let's see how it goes ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair. Now, this is supposed to bring me to the second question, which is that how do you believe you are different from what people's perception is about you, or do you feel it is super accurate? And here I also want to get into a slightly deeper part of things, right? That are you always as sorted as you say that you are, or as you're perceived that you are, or you feel that there are bad days, or XYZ? As in, I want to break the perception that people have about you and try to go slightly more deeper there.
Okay. Yeah, I think people are fairly correct, right? And I mean, like I mentioned, I've always been somebody who's been a planner, and I've always tried to be ready for the future, right? But then again, I think a lot of people don't realize is that there are days when I am also not confident about how the future will unfold.
Right.
No matter how prepared you are about the future, there's no certainty with which you can be ready or describe what is going to happen, right?
Right.
I think people underestimate that even for a person who has by and large planned a lot of things, there are days when I am also unsure. I am also facing some anxieties or uncertainties about my future, and I also have those negative thoughts, right? People generally also see me as somebody who's very positive, very optimistic, which is also kind of true.
Right.
But that does not stop me from being a realistic person as well, right? I also have moments of stress.
Right.
Sometimes things get to me. Sometimes I'm not always as jovial or as happy-go-lucky person that most people generally see me as, right? So I think that is very important. That is what I would take this opportunity to, bring it out there, that even the most luckiest person on this planet has his or her bad days,
Right.
down days. So I don't think I'm the most luckiest person on this planet. I'm grateful for whatever I have. I have abundance of everything. By God's grace, universe has given me a lot, and I think a lot is very subjective. What is a lot for me might be very little for someone else.
True.
I think it's about you, how you want to, or where you want to set that threshold or define that benchmark that, okay, this is enough for me.
Correct.
Right. So I think, yeah.
Nice. Good. Okay. Now comes the part. Okay, this is slightly philosophical, but what things make you feel good about your life? What things, emotions, anything makes you feel that yes, life is good?
Okay. So actually, I have quite a lot of things. More importantly, because my birthday was yesterday.
Right.
Yesterday or day before? Yeah, day before yesterday. And I was thinking about it. What all things
Yeah.
I am grateful about,
Right.
what all things I'm thankful about, right? So I had actually a really long introspection session. So I have quite a lot
You're
of
already prepared for
I'm
this.
already prepared for this answer. Actually, I think I'm very grateful, or in other words, thankful, or things that make me very happy, is that I have a very good set of people that surround me or are part of my life, right? I have a very good set of friends, family, that is obviously there, right? So I've always been, me, that I've always been a person who's more of a quality over quantity. I don't have like n number of friends.
Correct.
You do obviously talk to a lot of people. You have your social life and all, but the depths that are there with some people, the extent to which you share your life's, happiness, sorrows, joy, stress, worries, those are people that you can only always count on fingers, right? So I think I'm very blessed to have certain people in my life. And every friend has a role to play, right? Not all friends are there for every kind of a situation. So I have every friend who has a role that they knowingly, unknowingly fulfill in my life.
Nice.
And they bring that comfort or a sense of joy or excitement into my life, right? And most importantly, I think health. I think as long as I have a disease-free, healthy body, right? My body, my organs, everything is functioning well. My mind is functioning well. I think that's the biggest thing that I feel makes me feel alive, make me feel feel thankful about everything. So I think health से पहले कुछ नहीं है.
Right.
But thankfully, I have a very good family and friends who I can count on.
Right.
I know even if I am not in touch with them or we don't talk daily or anything, these are certain set of people that I can always bank on them, right? These are some gems that I've been blessed with for a lifetime. That obviously includes you, bro.
I think this is a very common feeling, right? As in, I know for a fact that we've talked about this before as well, that whenever, for example, someone asks me as well that what is your biggest achievement? I was recently filling this Y Combinator ka form, and they were saying that what is your biggest achievement? And it was not in the context of just the professional life, right? Or so I, as a fool, ended up writing that, you know what, matlab, my biggest my biggest achievement can never be a material achievement, right? As soon as you start putting, for example, I was XYZ director at XYZ company, or all of that, you're belittling the smaller things, or the foundational things that actually contribute to your life, right? So the relationships that you hold in your life, in my opinion as well, are the biggest treasure that you can ever build, right? Because they're not only relationships, but they're experiences along with relationships, right? Life is nothing but the sum of your experiences. So the amount of experiences that you end up building with the people that you have relationships with is always the most treasured thing that anyone will ever have, along with your body again, right? Super agreed on that as well. Mental health, physical health, all of them are super important. And they say, right, that life comes from you, not at you. So I think the more you're healthy, the healthier your brain is, the healthier your mind is, the healthier your body is. You're able to get a lot more, how do I say, satisfaction from what you're doing, being grateful about it. And so yeah,
To
I like
attract
that.
more beautiful opportunities. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Nice. ठीक है. Now we will make a switch to the professional bit of
Okay,
it,
sure.
right? So you described your career in terms of what you had done. I want you to go into slightly more detail of it, not again day to day level, but in general what you contributed, or what was the macro ownership that you had. But try to do it without the titles. I don't want you to go with titles or XYZ. Just help us understand that I worked for a company that did XYZ thing. Within that company, ABC was what I was contributing to it.
Before going into what I'm currently working on, I think I'd like to add on to what you mentioned about being a generalist, right?
Right.
So you've known me since some time, and across these 6-7 years, I think I'm very clear that I'm a generalist, and it has both its pros and cons. Because, like you mentioned, it's because of this influx of so many startups and the euphoria around having those insanely high top lines, right?
Right.
In the chase to grow the revenue of these companies, there were quite a good opportunities where people like you and me probably were able to establish, make a dent, were part of something big that actually made some impact, right? So I think, like I was mentioning earlier, I was, and like you mentioned, we'll not go into the titles and all, right?
Right.
So I've always been a custodian of consumer across my roles, right? And I've had the privilege and opportunity to work with some really nice names. Like I mentioned, I've worked with Swiggy. Then briefly, I was part of an e-commerce company in GCC, right? So, and right now, like more recently, I'm working with Licious, right? So all these companies, all these roles that I was part of, or I currently am part of, I think the one common parameter is that I've always been a custodian of consumer, right? So there is always a person who is responsible for ensuring that whatever things we do to address the business goals, there is somebody who is also looking out for the consumer, right? Because there are owners within every function. They're trying to chase the business objectives of their managers, all the senior leadership, etc. But there has to be one voice that plays like a devil's advocate inside the company, but as a guardian for the consumer when it comes to these apps, right?
Right.
So my role has always been, or my stints or associations have always been with companies which are more into the B2C frame, right?
Sure.
So the plus point of it is that you get a lot of direct consumer feedback, and you are mostly yourself a consumer as well as an internal customer
Correct.
of these kind of company,
Right.
So I think I'll tell you a very good example of when I started off with Swiggy, right? And how exciting it was, and how important it was for me to have a sense of tracking and measuring the effectiveness of what I'm doing, right? So say for example, this was I think almost 5-6 years ago now, right? So 5-6 years ago, I was part of the like growth team. Again, not mentioning any titles or something, but then yes, I was the only person like the custodian of ensuring consumers' well-being or what is best for the consumers.
Right.
Idea is that if you think about a consumer, if you address consumer pain points, it will automatically translate into business goodness.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So I have fortunately been always that person. I'm generally always the person who's met with a lot of resistance inside the companies because everybody is like, they want to deliver on their KPIs. But I am only the one who's thinking about, yaar, nahi, consumer ko kaisa lagega? Let's think about that. Let's not astray from the fact that in the chase to meet our KPIs or business objectives, it should not come at the cost of consumers' experience, right? Or what we are trying to deliver to them, right? So back in 2019, I was part of the growth team of UP.
Okay.
It was back in Varanasi.
Right.
And at that point of time, companies like top leadership decided, like it was a strategic call, that we'll shift from top line and focus on the UE, the unit economics of our cities, right? So revenue से profitability की तरफ that direction changed. So Swiggy में क्या होता है, if you fire up the app, right, and you see a list of all restaurants that you can order from, right? At that point of time, so internally there were metrics like, okay, within a 4-kilometer range, whatever restaurants are there, that will pop up, right?
Right.
Then there would be operational capabilities to extend that radius to a 6 kilometer, which we would call as LD, like long distance.
Fair.
And another 8 kilometers, like an SLD, super LD, and then there was like 10 plus.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
So from a consumer point of view,
What was the 10 plus called?
यार एक सुपर एलडी था, एक सुपर एक्सेल एलडी था, आई डोंट रिमेंबर नाउ, इट्स बीन
मैं वही सोचा था कि एलडी पे पहुंचे फिर एसएलडी पे पहुंचे नेक्स्ट
वो 4, 6, 8 एंड 10 प्लस कुछ होता था, which was very rare.
Fair.
And I'll tell you why it was very rare, because it comes at an ops cost, right? Because long distance orders hain. So the charges, what happens is, for these delivery partners, they get paid basis the kilometers they ride, etc. Right? Other than that, from a consumer point of view, there was a metric called IGCC जो PNL में होता है companies के. It was like instant gratification for consumer complaints.
Sure.
Right? IGCC complaints shoots up.
Right.
जितना दूर से order आएगा, because the chances are जितना time food will be in transit, उतना there are chances it will get spoiled, cold food होएगा, ice creams melt हो रही हैं, spillage issues हैं, blah blah blah, right? So there's always a cost to everything, right? So I, as a consumer, I was also responsible for making live some campaigns, right? And to gain more traction, like, so I'm trying to tell you the shift that happened. So when we were focusing on revenue, I would fight with my city head at that point of time that let's enable super LD, so that we have plethora of restaurants and we hit those numbers that we are aiming for, right? Then the pushback would come from ops head. My riders are, riding in rain. Then there are a lot of complaints, etc., and all that. But when we moved on and moved towards the UE part of it, that now we are not focusing on the revenue, but on the unit economics, that we have to be profitable at a per order level, right? So we curbed, and I took up projects where we wanted to demand shape towards restaurants that are closer to the consumer, right? So what happens is, in a small town like Varanasi, you don't have a lot of big brands with multiple outlets. People generally have their favorite outlets, which is, let's say, one branch located in some heart of the city, right? And let's say there's a consumer pocket which is located at, let's say, 6 to 8 kilometers away.
Sure.
right? So people would want to order from their favorite outlets,
Right.
but since we had reduced that radius and we wanted people to order in from their favorite or not favorite but like supplementary outlets
Within periphery of the
within the periphery, right? Because that reduces our costs. Ops goes down. We were trying to sell them, okay, if you want a burger,
yeah.
but you like instead of ordering it from a restaurant that you have been ordering from, which is 10 kilometers, why don't you try these options, right? So something as a project that works from transitioning from a top line to a bottom line. So it was very important that we keep an eye out on what is the
Correct.
hit that we are taking on the revenue,
Very
right?
true.
So when we did that, it was very important, and we saw that a lot of orders were declining, right? So we used to track a metric called OPD, orders per day,
Sure.
right? When we moved towards this objective, or we started implementing, right, we wanted to demand share, there was a immediate impact that we were seeing in our orders per day, right? So the OPD metric took a hit. So instead of all the way reducing from 10 to let's say 4, then I proposed that, okay, let's do a midway, right? We do an experiment where for certain pockets, we still enable like, let's say an LD, so 4 to 6, right? And maybe not all the way, and gradually take that top hit and move towards the bottom hit. So I've had the privilege of working some really exciting, I say, problem statements. This is just one that I could think of.
Fair.
So I work on something very, close to how it impacts the consumer. So that's the kind of journey I've had till now, and that's what keeps me very excited.
No, that's super interesting. I think the use case in itself speaks a lot about. I think Swiggy has also been a benchmark in terms of solving for the last mile delivery space in itself, right? And I've also had the chance of working with Swiggy itself, and very similar experiences where it was. There is no absolute answer in a black or a white. There is always something that you can figure out in between, and it's more about how close you can stay to the data to understand how it is impacting on a day-on-day basis, and then act upon that. Even in this right now, I want to deep dive a little on the day-to-day, for example, that used to happen. Now, for example, you understand that OPD has taken a hit, right? And there are things that you would want to do. Now, I believe that data in general has a lot of roles to play within organizations, right? So there would be certain North Star metrics that are there, that trends in those metrics is what you usually look for, and you try to derive an understanding of the market from them. So for example, if OPD drops, then yes, market is reacting negatively. Why could that be? That could be because of a weekend, that could be because of a holiday, or a lot of other reasons, right? So similarly, once you've realized, for example, that the OPD is low, what were the deep dives, for example, that you used to do to understand a little more on those? Were those quantitative insights or qualitative insights? I'd like to.
Sure. So, like few caveats were here. So, like you mentioned, right? If OPD, it's like an output metric,
Correct.
right? First thing would be, and caveat that I was talking about is, you don't generally look for a single day trend.
Fair.
Idea is always to look at least a week's data, because there will be a lot of vagaries you can't attribute or pinpoint or put a finger on.
Right.
What is going wrong?
Of course.
Right. And if OPD is taking a hit, right? So the idea is to understand, okay, first of all, you understand the input metrics. Did traffic at all take a hit, right? If people are not opening up the app only, then there's not much that I can do, right? Then I don't need to attribute it to, let's say, a slew of measures or interventions that are being planned, right? Maybe there's a certain phenomena that is leading to people not opening the apps, right? Let's say, I don't know, maybe people are, let's say, in a market which is dominated by students, right? Varanasi had
BHU students.
BHU students से हमारा mostly orders आता, right? At least 70% of our revenue used to come from that pocket.
They would anyways be early adopters of the.
Correct, right. So let's say there is some semester break going on. A lot of students are not in colleges anymore, right? So the people are not only opening the gap, right? Then there will be another like intervention that can be done. Maybe there's a more critical or key role that CRM team has to play, right?
Fair.
How do we reach out to these people? What are the channels that we want to use, right? That is something that I learned more recently, working with Licious, right? But now in hindsight, I realize that there are so many things that you can do. But in my scope, what I would look at is, so you don't simply look at end-to-end metrics, right? One is the top of the funnel, which is your traffic, people opening the app. One is your key output metric, which is your OPD or revenue, right? There's a whole journey in between, which you call the funnel optimization. So that is something that I was looking at, and I was again like most of my roles have been IC in nature, right? And this is what I was mentioning earlier, that there's no dearth of data with Swiggy, right? And I was enjoying myself, swimming in those numbers, trying to make sense, trying to catch something, what is causing what, right? And very early on in my life, I realized, at least in my professional career, right, there are two things that you should always know in order to be in a comfortable or in a safe position when it comes to work.
Sure.
If something is not happening correctly, why? Have the answer to that.
Right.
If something is happening good, then also why?
Right.
यही है. Question एक ही है, why? Okay, why is revenue going up? You should have an answer to that.
Right.
Why is revenue not going up? You should have an answer to that. बस यही है भाई. अगर ये answer है आपके पास, then you are in a good position. वरना you are sitting in some uncomfortable meetings. ठीक है. So idea was, so like I mentioned, there's a lot of data there, right? Okay, so अब OPD जैसे आपने पूछा कि what would you do to take next steps, right? Going deeper, right? So going deeper would be to look at each funnel and identify where the most drop-off is happening.
Okay.
Within Swiggy, we used to have certain funnels. So at that point of time, when you fired up the app, अब तो बहुत evolve हो गई app, but it was like on the homepage itself, you would have
list of restaurants,
एक endless scroll आता था, ऊपर you'll have some widgets and all, right? So that would be called as a listing page.
Fair.
Right? So हमारे funnels ऐसे होते थे, listing page, listing to menu.
Right.
किसी भी restaurant बिल के कह रहा तो आपका menu आ गया.
Right.
Menu to cart, कि आपने menu में कोई items हैं, add करा cart पे आ गए.
Right.
Cart payment to payments and payments to order.
Right.
तो ये पूरी हमारी जर्नी होती थी. एक स्टेप पे कितना ड्रॉप ऑफ है क्या नहीं. Payments to order usually was 98-99%. Minimal drop-offs other than
that would anyways be service broken.
Correct. Good technical failures and all. तो वहाँ पे there was anyway very little room to play around with or any other issues. At every funnel that we just talked about, right? Listing पे there were like 5-6 factors. Menu page पे 5-6 factors. Cart page पे 5-6 factors that could impact either progression or drop-off of a consumer. Let me give you a few examples.
Right.
Listing पे अगर if you remember, there would be quite a few factors that could play an important role कि कोई consumer जाएगा नहीं जाएगा. एक तो यह है आपकी रेस्टोरेंट की अवेलेबिलिटी, कि मेरा रेस्टोरेंट है जिससे मेरे को खाना है, आपके पास लिस्टेड है कि नहीं, या फिर मैं किसी कॉम्पिटिटर के जाऊँ. राइट. अगर वो लिस्टेड है, फैंटास्टिक, एक ये फैक्टर हो गया. देन आ गई रेस्टोरेंट की रेटिंग. रेस्टोरेंट की रेटिंग अगर खराब है तो मैं नहीं जाऊंगा, तो मैं ड्रॉप ऑफ हो जाऊंगा. राइट. Then we used to have a CFT option at that point of time called cost for two.
Right, yes.
A price sensitive consumer will not enter the menu अगर उसका CFT बहुत हाई होगा. But अगर रेंज में होगा then I will go. Right. तो ऐसे बड़े सारे फैक्टर्स होते हैं जिनको हम असेस कर सकते हैं to decide okay कहाँ ड्रॉप ऑफ है. लिस्टिंग पे नहीं है, okay, then you go on to menu. अब मेन्यू में आपका एक हीरो SKU होगा.
करेक्ट.
किसी जगह का, लेट्स से अब वहीं का एग्जांपल देता हूँ मैं. वाराणसी में देयर वाज अ आउटलेट जहाँ पे मलइयो मिलता है.
Okay.
अब मलइयो इज अ वेरी स्पेसिफिक थिंग टू वाराणसी. लोग स्पेशली सर्दियों में जाते हैं वो खाने.
Okay.
अब अगर मैंने वो आउटलेट लिस्ट किया हुआ है लेकिन वो मेरी मेन चीज जो मेरे को खानी है वो नहीं है, आई विल ड्रॉप ऑफ. तो मेरा मेन्यू टू कार्ट ड्रॉप ऑफ हो रहे हैं, आई विल आइडेंटिफाई दिस.
करेक्ट.
राइट. मेन्यू में और क्या चीजें हो सकती हैं. लेट्स से यू एंड आई, लाइक वी आर बैचलर्स, वी लिव बाय आवरसेल्व्स. वेरिएंट्स, अगर आपने फैमिली पैक ही दिया हुआ है बटर चिकन का 1 kg ही है, although who are we kidding, हम अकेले भी खा सकते हैं, but let's say like if meals for one, right? अगर आपने half kg की वेरिएंट, 250 ग्राम की वेरिएंट नहीं है, आपने एक ही वेरिएंट रखा है, तो भी there is a good chance कि मैं ड्रॉप ऑफ कर जाऊंगा कि मैं अकेला नहीं खा सकता और मुझे महंगा भी पड़ेगा वो. Right? There could be a lot of factors. Similarly, cart page पे. Now this is where things get very interesting. कार्ट पेज पे there are so many factors that can determine कि place होगा नहीं होगा order.
I've always been super curious about the cart to order conversion because apart from, for example, I'll not stop you. Actually, go ahead.
नहीं बोलो. Then I'll maybe.
There was this one thing that is the shipping charge, and for example, as in the total tally of the numbers, right? As in when you have that, there is something broken in your initial flow that has led to a disbelief for your customer that, for example, leads to that part. That is one thing that I can think of. Then a lot of times what happens is, for example, that there are out of stocks that get reflected when you add items to the cart or when you land to the cart finally. That is another thing. But yes, apart from that, I'm also super curious what it used to be.
Right. So like you mentioned, ठीक है, एक तो shipping charge ही होता है. Shipping charge एक component है, but there was a study that was done, जिसको बोलते हैं bill shock. So when you reach on the cart page is when you get that bill shock कि oh my god मैंने तब तो भूख के मारे या फिर जो मुझे चाहिए सब ऐड करता गया, अब बिल बन गया मेरे अकेले का let's say 600-700 का, right? Let's say I'm a regular eater and this is not something that I want to go ahead with. तो bill shock में one component like you mentioned, एक तो हो गया आपका delivery charges, right? कि यार मैं पहले let's say अगर चलो 400 का भी बना मेरा कार्ड, 300 का भी बना, कूपन लग के 200 का कुछ हो गया, right? उस पे मैं 40-50 रुपीज डिलीवरी चार्ज दूं, मे बी आई एम अ प्राइस सेंसिटिव कंज्यूमर, एंड ऑनेस्टली देयर आर क्वाइट अ लॉट ऑफ स्टडीज जहां पे पीपल माइंड पेइंग डिलीवरी चार्ज इररिस्पेक्टिव. अगर आप 1000-2000 का भी करोगे ना, आपको 39 रुपीज का डिलीवरी चार्ज चुभेगा. करेक्ट. इट्स अ कंज्यूमर साइकोलॉजी. इट हैज गॉट नथिंग टू डू विद द प्राइस कंज्यूमर.
इफ यू एज अ रेस्टोरेंट ऐड दैट टू योर प्राइस ऑफ द डिश, राइट, एंड देन गिव इट, there are studies that say that, you know what, people actually ended up buying it just for the sake of it. Although today the disbelief on the listing price has also grown so much, right? Matlab ki I still remember when I used to be at Swiggy, there used to be this parity sort of thing, where you used to compare that what is the menu price versus the Swiggy price, and you have to make sure it is the same. So वो भी है,
right? So एक तो डिलीवरी चार्ज वाला that causes कि यार मैं नहीं दूंगा डिलीवरी चार्ज, right? I don't want to pay that. भले कितना भी हो. So there were quite a few experiments that we ran there also. Basis distance, basis time of the day, कितनी डिलीवरी चार्ज है, right? Then आपका होता है GST कि टैक्स लग रहा है. Then आपका होता है पैकिंग चार्ज. So all these things can determine कि whether I will go ahead and place my order or not. ठीक है. कार्ट पेज पे और भी बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीजें होती हैं. कार्ट पेज पे और क्या होता है, आई हैड इट इन माई माइंड, अभी आई एम लाइक स्किपिंग इट, बट देयर आर क्वाइट अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स जो कार्ट पेज पे डिटरमाइन करती हैं. अच्छा हाँ, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट है जो आपको कार्ट पेज पे आते हैं, विच इज योर PSLA. सो देयर इज अ मेट्रिक SLA. इंटरनली उसको एक होता है PSLA, विच इज योर प्रॉमिस्ड SLA, सर्विस लेवल एग्रीमेंट विद बाय द बिजनेस टू द कंज्यूमर, एंड इंटरनली हम ट्रैक करते थे ASLA, विच इज योर एक्चुअल SLA, राइट? कार्ट पेज पे मुझे लग रही है बहुत तेज भूख, मैंने कार्ट बनाया, आप मुझे कार्ट पेज पे दिखा रहे हो कि डिलीवरी होएगी 1 घंटे में, 45-50-55 मिनट्स में, आई विल ड्रॉप ऑफ. मैं कुछ और देखूंगा जहां मेरे को 20 मिनट में आए खाना, एंड लाइक इन द टाइम्स दैट वी आर नाउ वी नीड 10-15 मिनट्स.
बट एज अ कंज्यूमर आई हैव सीन दैट समटाइम्स what is promised to you in the front is not what is reflected in the actual one. I'm assuming that usually to keep the latency low on the first page, you'll have something that is a standard value that does not change very often. Whereas on the cart, you'll have something that is refreshed almost immediately. That is like the live expected SLA for the person.
So I had this doubt myself when I was working.
Yeah.
The response that I got was the systems are so dynamic. Every minute there is an order being placed and every minute there is an order being delivered. तो आपका उतने में ही वो चेंज होता रहता है.
Right. Got it.
And there is obviously, like you mentioned, there is a buffer that is also kept in, and it is very dynamic in nature. This is your basket size as well. और अगर आपकी number of items कुछ ज़्यादा ही हैं, automatically आपका 55 minutes तक चला जाएगा, because it requires some prep time, etc.
Plus some items would be more time taking versus the others.
Correct. So we used to work on every detail of this, right? So like you mentioned कि अगर OPD गिर रहा है, तो it was my job to understand, okay, अब there are like thousands of restaurants, right? I can't be going into every restaurant's every detail. What we would do is Pareto. 80% जो मेरे है जहाँ से बिजनेस आ रहा है वो टॉप 20 मैंने रेस्टोरेंट्स उठा रहे हैं, राइट? वो मेरी हीरो सप्लाई जिसको हम बोलते थे, राइट? ऑफ दोज हीरो सप्लाईज में भी यू स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द टॉप 5 में कोई इशू तो है कि नहीं है, वहीं पर ही आपका मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो जाता है, वो टॉप 5 टॉप 10 में ही. सो इसके अगर मैं डेप्थ में चला जाऊं या फिर इसकी मैं देखूं कोई IGCC अगर स्पाइक ना हो रहा हो कि किसी आइटम की वजह से बहुत कंप्लेंट्स आ रही है, जैसे आई वेंट इनटू डेप्थ्स, आई अंडरस्टैंड कि कॉफी वाले ऑर्डर्स में बहुत आ रही थी, स्पिलेज इश्यूज आ रहे थे,
अच्छा,
राइट, एंड देन उसका कोरिलेशन 4 किलोमीटर्स वाले में नहीं हो रहा था, ग्रेटर देन अ सर्टेन डिस्टेंस पे हो रहा था, तो वो आइटम ही डिसेबल करवा दो कैटलॉग टीम से बोल के. So हाँ, now that I talk about it, like it's very exciting यार, like I mentioned, like data पे खेलो ना तो मतलब it's very exciting because there's very little room for anyone to dispute that.
Very true, very true.
तो I think वो बहुत amazing है उस sense में.
Nice. This reminds me. So I worked for catalog at Swiggy, and then I was researching for Delivery Hero.
भाई रुक, पंखा चला रहे हैं.
हाँ. और so I was मैं Delivery Hero में एक research कर रहा था. We had these. We were at the Taiwan office only, and we were speaking to people from the city, and we had this young lady come in, and we asked her that we were essentially asking them to go through the app and order food for themselves. She searched for a burger, and she went through the list, and we were trying to understand why she did not pick one of her favorite restaurants, or for example, the more known restaurants. And the very easy or basic insight that we got was that the photo is very ugly, right? And then what we realized was that a lot of times, this used to happen at Swiggy also, very early days, at Delivery Hero also, that sometimes you use template photos for a lot of these things, right? Or you reuse photos. If, for example, the restaurant has not gotten a photo shoot done for themselves, then you use that. And what we realized was that the restaurant she chose was actually a template photo that she ended up going for, and just because it looked much more yummy and much more scrumptious, right? So I think that was another key insight for us, that from the listing page to menu,
Correct,
it is so much more important for you to, for example, go for the right image. And then also another piece that I think, while I was doing the vendor management at Swiggy, right, we noticed a trend that people started opening specialized outlets, or for example, pizza and panini, right? Specialized things. So there used to be cafes that used to have a whole variety of things, but then just to make it much more easier for the buyers to make a choice, you make it, for example, a pizza bakery, right? So for a fact that there is pizza, they will be awesome at it, and let me just go ahead and buy that. Now a lot of people have come in, for example, Box 8, Mojo, all of the groups have come in and they've done that. But that was another interesting piece. I used to myself then tell people who used to ask me, ki, sir, how do I grow my business and XYZ? I used to say, ki, sir, just open a separate entity specifically for noodles and Chinese, and then for separately for momos and XYZ, and you'll see a lot of growth, right? And that was also another key insight that I used to see, that this actually works like wonder. Even if you don't know the brand, if you have a decent rating, you have good photos, you'll actually grow.
that's actually true, yeah. Because I'm not sure if this is very nuanced to India or Indian markets, but the concept of a branded house does not work, or let me put it this way, a house of brands is much better than a branded house. Like आप एक ही umbrella entity के अंडर अगर करते जाओगे, it will not gain that much traction. But if you make like a house of brands, right? जैसे I think Rebel Foods has done that wonderfully, right? आपका बेरोज बिरयानी है, आपका मोजो किचन है, आपका Fasos hai.
Exactly.
People don't realize that it's just one cloud kitchen, and they've just created multiple brands.
Correct.
And they've listed it separately.
Exactly.
And that has worked off like anything, right? So I think after the duopoly of Swiggy and Zomato, if I'm not wrong, last I checked, the third biggest food player is Rebel Foods itself, right? It's like the silent, juggernaut in the making.
Very true.
And they've cracked this very beautifully, right? So like what you're mentioning about is actually we've seen it play out very wonderfully in the Indian markets.
Fair. Okay. Translate into your day-to-day, business analytics, value of data, metrics. Let's talk a little about metrics, right? So I will take the liberty to say that you've worked majority of your career in growth roles, right? So for a growth manager, what are the key metrics that they look at, and maybe some less known metrics that are like very core to the whole thing, right? So you mentioned, for example, OPD, and then the entire funnel is there. Now within that funnel, I was curious that there would be buyers who pick a certain restaurant and then they start dropping off against that, right? So for example, conversion rate specific to buyers, or conversion rate in general. So what is it that you as a growth manager at Swiggy were looking at, for example? If, for example, an aspiring growth manager is looking at this right now, would want to know.
Sure. So I think There are quite a few metrics that are very well known, right? And like for all these startups, revenue seems to be the North Star metric, at least in the earlier stages, right? Um, Beyond that, I think everybody owns up to certain metrics. So, like I mentioned, since I've always been the person who is a custodian of consumer welfare or consumer side of things, right? Within the company, then you have teams that own up certain metrics and are responsible for them, right? So, while I started off in a very growth heavy role with Swiggy, I later transitioned into a role that was more merch heavy, right? The storefront, the app, right? So all those widgets, etc., all those campaigns. So basically, when you look at the app, right, every app that you look at is designed in a certain way, which in business terms we call it the wireframe of the app.
Right.
Agar, to dumb it down, it's like a skeleton, right? And what merchandising does is it's basically fleshing out the app, right? So you have a skeleton in place कि कहाँ पे किस style में किस width, design aspect ratio, etc. सब कुछ जाएगा, right? Where which widget would come in, what each widget would do. Whereas merchandising is what brings it out in all its glory, right? How do you flesh it out? What do you surface? Which offers to show? What to show to consumers? When do you show it? How do you show it? Right? So I worked with Swiggy and I was part of the central merchandising team for about 2 years. There are quite a few BAU aspects when it comes to maintaining the freshness on the app, ensuring relevant things are shown to the consumers during weekdays, weekends, time of the day, right? During breakfast, you want to show something else, whereas during dinners, you want to show something else, right? And what we used to call is, and I'm sure you're aware, it's called a JTBD, right? The jobs to be done for each widget, which is something decided not very lightly. Like a lot of product designers, product managers, business teams, the merchandising stakeholders, everybody has a role to play in deciding what each widget has to do. Right? So, for example, if you open the Swiggy app, so the topical widget, it's like a carousel banner, right? The JTBD of that widget was to drive immediate action. By that means, we don't care if, you come back or not basis this widget. We just want you to look at it and place an immediate order. So the JTBD of that widget was, how do we convert people in this session itself? So generally, we would only surface offer-led communication on those widget or banners, right? So then if you scroll down, there was a very big widget, the discovery widget. Basically, it talked about recipes or some things that do not drive immediate action, but make a consumer open the app again and again. So it was basically an engagement piece. How do we impact the stickiness on the app? Right? So when I talk about these things, every widget on the app has a role to play. Right? And that decides which metric needs to be observed, tracked, or measured to define the success. Right? So if I talk about the topical widget, right, I want to drive immediate action. So a conversion for that widget would be very important, right? More importantly, if I wanted to tie it to the North Star metric of the company, which is revenue, right? So for an end-to-end analysis of what is working, what is not working, I would look at, let's say, a revenue per X impressions. Right? That would give me a very holistic picture of how much revenue am I able to drive per X number of impressions from this widget. Right? So that is something there. In more simpler terms, conversion is my North Star for that widget. Whereas when it comes to an engagement kind of a widget like the discovery card, I would want people to click on it. Like my CTRs would be more important rather than a conversion. Right? I might have, let's say, placed a content which acts as a hook for the consumers. Like here is a interesting tale or like a food trail kind of a thing. You click on it, it takes you through various parts of the country in form of like an Indian map or something, right? कि यहाँ पे ये famous है, इस part of the country में यहाँ पे ये है. And then if you click on it, it redirects you to a set of or a collection of restaurants that give you that dish. So I might not be able to drive immediate conversion from this widget. So it would make more sense if I tracked the CTRs of this widget, right? So that's how
early adoption essentially.
correct. And you refresh this content on a very regular basis, right? Then again, you have data to substantiate how frequently do you want to refresh the content, right? So initially, if you make a content live, right, you'll see that initial spike. Eventually, it will taper down and stabilize.
Yes.
Right. That stabilizing inflection or that point where it stabilizes is where I know कि okay, अब मेरा CTR stable हो गया है. If I again refresh it, it will again go up from here. Right. That point, that benchmark, that threshold is how I identify कि मेरे को क्या cadence रखनी है refresh की. Right.
Fair.
So those things. That's how you decide okay, what all metrics you need to keep an eye on. If I want to, let's say, drive conversion. So within that also, I can break it down into ATC levels, right?
Right.
Add to cart per 1,000 impressions, right? All those things. So it's like metrics going hai. Aapka impressions, clicks, CTRs, ATC conversion, right? Basis your objective, a good growth marketer would play around with those metrics and would develop an understanding ki which two metrics together will give you a bigger picture or help you in taking decisions in what your objectives are.
Fair.
So that's something I believe you start off with basic things and then as you progress and build that confidence, you develop a thing
Understood.
to understand what is working,
Which is
not.
fair. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, right? My assumption would be that in general, especially in a role in growth, right, the life cycle or the objectives keep on changing so frequently that while the metric is the same, it is essentially a tool, and there will be so many different POVs for you to look at it, and thus it is more about, it is a top-down approach, right? For example, that this is, for example, the objective. This is what I need to do to get to that. What are the proxies or the relevant metrics that help me understand what is happening with it currently? Versus, for example, if I build a solution for that, what are the relevant metrics? Are the previous metrics going to move? How much are they going to move, and XYZ? So that is what I understand of this. Now, again, I had intentionally, I did not want to foray into a sort of advertisement for my own business, but I'd want to understand a little more on, what are the tools that you used to use at the time. And when I say tools, I don't necessarily mean only data platforms or mixed panels of the world and XYZ, but in general, what was the support that you had for this? Were you writing the queries yourself? Were you an analyst? Did you have an analyst with you? They used to do it. Were there dashboards, XYZ? What was your way of identifying movement in those metrics? And whenever you're defining a new metric, what was the process you were going through?
So with Swiggy, we had a few tools at our disposal, right? We had some dashboards in Power BI.
Sure.
For ready reference, right? For that, so this is basically for BAU purposes, right? If there is something BAU, you can always refer to those dashboards.
So when you say BAU, can you quote a few examples of the metrics within the conversation that we had?
BAU is basically if you're not doing an experimentation or not going ahead with any projects like we talked about or discussed, right? It's just the hygiene purposes, right? For hygiene, okay. If I want to know if something has not broken on the app in any city, right? Right. There would be alerts or triggers.
So essentially, traffic of the app, then
traffic of the app हो गया, widgets हो गया आपके. Basically, yes, very high level metrics.
Understood.
You can always look at that, right? For other finer nuanced metrics or analysis, right? I would have an MIS support, right? And so this team or this individual would help in writing queries, and we were leveraging Snowflake.
Right.
At that point of time, Snowflake's पे either we would get the query from this person and we would run it ourselves, right? For repetitive things, we would do that. But for more complex things or for data to be visualized or presented in a certain format or like a short-term recurring project, which probably does not warrant, let's say, a long-term Power BI dashboard, but a recurring refresh, like a daily refresh, etc. Then this individual from the MIS team would help us in doing that, right?
Sure.
So yeah, that's how we would go about it.
Fair. Okay. So another thing that I would want to talk about is trends in the market, or essentially, what do you believe is the next big thing when we talk about consumer brands, or let's say consumer growth or consumer marketing? in India, across the world, what you believe is going to substantially change the way things are marketed to people, and then things that are custodians, for example, things that enable you to be a better custodian to your user. Do you believe there are trends upcoming in the market that you feel can impact this by any chance?
There are actually two things, and I might be biased because of so much energy and noise around these two things. But I do see merit and it happening in reality. I'll talk about these two things, and these two things I believe might be trending right now, but are here to stay, and for good reason. I think one is speed. So when I say speed, we as individuals are hunger for gratification or fulfillment of our desires or needs or whatever we want, right, is increasing like anything.
Correct.
It's we'll not go into the fact why it's happening. It's because of a lot of reasons, right? But I think there's so much advancement in technologies and there's so much need for it as well, because we are so pressed for time that we want everything within seconds or within minutes, right? With the whole quick commerce wave, right? Right now, the spotlight is more on the food part of it, or let's say the grocery part of it, right? But if you see, there are shoots that are extending to the e-commerce world as well,
Right.
the fashion part as well, right? If you look at it, there are certain
Very recently, Clydo was launched.
Clydo hai, and there are other many ऐसे fledglings out there. You'll see there's a Trio करके है, 10 minutes में, 30 minutes में. Snitch itself has
Snitch is
gone ahead
also
with 60 minutes delivery.
Yeah.
Myntra has again gone ahead with Myntra now. I was just looking at an ad, right? So I think everything like food, Blinkit, so much. There's a lot of noise, lot of spotlight here, but I think this will extend to everything. Like Blinkit went ahead and did something bold. Ambulance in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not just about, let's say, discretionary spends. It's something about very critical to life also. So when I say it's not just that, it's not a trend. It's actually going to be the reality.
I do as in socially, or as someone who's part of the society, I do agree that it is a construct that should be there. But then, as someone who's, for example, been part of different cost centers, or who has been a business owner, right? It is difficult to understand a world where people would come together and say that, hey, you know what? If today Blinkit says that anyone and everyone has to subscribe to, let's say, a 300 rupee fee to be able to, for us to be able to create the infrastructure around ambulance, right? Because the point there is that whenever you ask for an ambulance or they come and XYZ, there is no way that you can make it profitable as a business in its isolation, right? And until and unless you don't do that, it is not going to be a long-term standing solution, right? It can be there for social reasons, it can be there for marketing reasons for companies to be there, but then I don't think any company will ever let a few crores of their businesses go into providing ambulance to people. As in, I don't see that happening. So for it to be profitable, or for it to be a sufficient business in itself, it will either come with a lot of disparity, that the rich are getting charged more and the poor are not, and then in general our society functions. So it is a very socialist way of thinking of it, that when you have money, then you should spare some and let people do it. The other way is, for example, having it at a very premium cost and only premium people getting to use it, right? That again brings in the arbitrage, or for example, the question that should the poor not be exposed to such services or XYZ. So I've never felt very comfortable around the idea. I do understand, right? As in, people say that when food can come in 10 minutes, why can ambulance not? The whole point is that you're ready to pay a lot of premium for food, and if a poor person does not get food in 10 minutes, you do not complain about it. But as soon as it starts becoming about ambulance or life-saving things, for example, that is where I, for some reason, have a doubt. I'm not sure. Again, I most of it feels to be a marketing gimmick to me, to be honest. It does not feel like something that is real or something that people will be able to make happen as a substantial thing. Of course, that does not mean that I want to put down the efforts that have been made towards it, right? As in, I highly appreciate that, and I wish that more people take motivation from that, are able to figure out. For example, creating compact beds on the back of a bike is something that a few people have been working on, and that can actually be a decent solution, right? So from that POV, I agree, but I am not sure how much, for example, a Blinkit or a 10-minute ambulance would suffice. What's your opinion on that?
No, I hear you. I mean, the point point is well taken, right? And the profitability of it is not what is the focus right now. So the reason I started off by mentioning that this is trending right now, but it is here to stay.
Right, fair.
Right? It is here to stay is what I was trying to make a point. In its current shape and form, it is not feasible, not scalable, not profitable also, right? The point is not to focus on the fact that they are doing something which is good.
Sure.
The point is that the speed factor is not going to be limited to a certain business or certain aspects. It is going to extend to a lot other like
Got it.
areas of life.
Okay.
That's what
Fair,
I'm saying.
fair.
And for it to be profitable or sustainable or scalable, see, right now, all the startups that we are talking about or have been associated with, they have been live for about 10-15 years now. They are yet to become profitable. Right? But the point is, if you don't start now, right, it won't happen in the next 15-20 years. It has to start somewhere. The point is not about not agreeing to all the valid points that you just mentioned, right? I absolutely agree with you, right? The idea is that it has to start somewhere, right?
Fair.
And once we start, there will be, like, especially in a market like India, there's a lot of pestle that has to be taken care of, right? All the pestle factors need to grow in union, in sync, right? So many policy changes, so many infrastructure developments have to happen for it to be both a social as well as a commercial success. That will not happen overnight. But the point is, speed is something that I believe will trickle to every aspect, to a lot more aspects than it is being,
Fair.
focused on right now.
Fair.
So that is what I was focusing on, right? So I think speed is one thing.
That is the first one.
That is first point. Second is, of course, AI. I know it's the buzzword right now, but AI is here for a reason and for good reason. And when we talk about AI, it's almost unfair we don't talk about ChatGPT, right? It has.
I have a point to add there, but yes, go ahead.
That's okay. So it has, leapfrogged, frog leap, whatever the term is, us to a state where a lot of our decision making has improved. And I will not comment on how people are using it for personal reasons, but from a business point of view, I think it's quite phenomenal what it can aid, right? So there are a lot of things that are being done by GPT now, right? Tech teams across orgs are leveraging GPTs, right? ChatGPT is just one of the players, but GPT is something that a lot people who are closer to tech, people who are coding to softwares, etc., are leveraging it now, and it's making their lives easier also. It's bringing in a lot of use cases also, right? So AI, we have been talking about it since so many years, and now ChatGPT has brought some of it live, and now that the rubber has actually hit the road, right? We are seeing some really good things happening there. There will of course be some downsides to it. There are still a lot of limitations to it. So it's about, as you say, roses and thorns wali baat hai. Like, there will be some people will give you bouquets, you will get some brickbats. But I think these two aspects will redefine or set businesses or industries on the next path. Speed and AI. At least in my POV, I think जो next pura growth unlock होएगा, that will happen from these two focus areas.
Fair.
You had a point to make.
Yes, I'm actually so GPT has become or ChatGPT rather has become synonymous to AI for most of us as a consumer, right? And I was actually, so I used to be part of that cohort, but then I started deep diving a little, and it was shocking to know that most of the intelligence that we have today in LLMs, large language models, anything, Google had that for a very long time, right? And the whole reason OpenAI was started as a company by Elon Musk and a bunch of other people was that Google cannot have the entire control of AI as an industry, and that is why we need to open a competitor, and that is why so much money was shelled in at the time, right? So even when ChatGPT was launched, again, as a product, I respect it a lot. It brought in that change amongst people. It went for an approach that there will be early adopters who are completely fine with it not being in a perfect state, versus, for example, Google. The reason Google did not launch it for a long time was that they were not confident on the biases that it holds, on the biases that AI holds. Even today, for example, an LLM gives you the most popular result against a query rather than the source of truth. There is no way for it to identify the source of truth unless it reasons with itself, right? So it is, of course, getting much better at it. But even today, for example, if you ask for a medicine, let's say against a particular thing, let's say there are 10,000s of articles of paracetamol being the right medicine for that, versus, let's say, there are only two or three, let's say, medical resources that say that apart from paracetamol, XYZ is also a decent thing. The most popular result is what gets spotted, for example, in your search, than, for example, the source of truth. Again, as a general rule of approximation, most of the cases, the popular result will be the right one. But then there are cases where it might not be right. And especially when you go into more into human health, or, for example, mental conditioning part of things, or all of that, that is where it starts bringing in a lot of biases of its own, or biases of what is present out there on the internet, what it has been trained on. So that is why I've always felt that, or I try to correct my friends around the fact that Gemini or Google is the real evangelist of, for example, AI or LLM. And even before that, right, I think it is the data scientists, it is the people who've been putting in so many years of work and research into all of this that has actually led to this. But yes, GPT, it is always very fancy, or interesting to know, or speak to people when it's GPT synonymous to that. And then I feel that Google deserves a big credit here, that they've been investing in this severely for a very long time. Of course, they do it to be in a position of power, but then I do feel that the revolution that we're at the brink of would be something that has been tipped off by Google, or by the bigger minds that were behind Gemini, than, for example, GPT as a product.
But they're not linked, right? मतलब ChatGPT अलग है और Gemini अलग है.
They're different, but essentially the foundation of a large language model is the same, right?
But I think वही यार मतलब at a very young age, my dad taught me one thing. वो first mover advantage वाली बात है.
Yes,
You can either be the first at something, or you can be the best.
exactly.
So first, now we know क्या है. Best we are yet to probably
Yes,
figure out.
yes.
So that's the
Fair.
hat
That's
is still
true.
in the
That's
air. So let's see how it turns
Fair.
out. But I think no matter which player is best
It's
or
good
not,
for us as a society.
we win.
Maybe.
At least for 40,
Let's
50 years before AI takes
40,
over.
50 years is too late. I think we'll know in 10, 20 years.
हाँ, but वो take over वाला अभी नहीं है. We are still 100 years away.
Actually, there is a theory I was discussing with a friend, right? That in general, humans are known to be the pinnacle of intellect in our ecosystem, in our universe, or
On
the
Earth.
universe that we know of.
On
right?
Earth.
On Earth.
बाहर है भाई,
Let's
वो
stick to
अलग
Earth.
topic है.
Let's stick to Earth, right? So we're the pinnacle of intelligence, or that is what we believe, right? So for the longest period of time, that has been the case. Now that, as and when reasoning comes, I do not believe that we are there yet, but as and when we are able to build reasoning into language models, large language models, AGI, essentially, that is when we will have something, a being that has higher intellect than us and has more power than us. Right now, after that, there will be different stages to it. There will be stages of making it physically alive, for example, right? So they will unlock a lot of resources for themselves, be it using nuclear energy, be it using physical advancement in nanotechnology or XYZ. They will unlock themselves for a physical form, and that is when we will become the primitive organisms. So imagine a world where uh, AI beings are able to move from one planet to another or one universe to another, just like humans are today from one city to another. And we're like the chimps who are essentially stuck at Earth, and we're staying here, and we're frolicking around, and so yeah, that's one of the theories out there that again excites me and then also scares me at the same time. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how it turns out to be.
I think वो होगा, कब होगा is what we don't
Yes.
know. There's a course by NG Andrew around AI.
Yes. Huh.
I did that some 5-6 years
Yeah.
ago. And उसमें मेरा key takeaway यही था, और कुछ याद हो ना हो, कि we are still 100+ years away from that happening. तो मुझे उस बात का वो है कि अच्छा अभी नहीं होगा, वो जब होगा टेक ओवर तब की तब देखेंगे. और कुछ याद हो ना हो, वो सर्टिफिकेशन से ये याद है कि AI will not rule humans for at least 100+ years away. But I don't know, तब इतना कुछ भी नहीं था. Like in 6-7 years we have progressed so much. So it's like a double-edged sword. जितनी तेजी से AI grow हो रहा है, उतनी तेजी से we are probably headed towards that doomsday also.
Correct.
तो जो हम let's say 50 years ago envision करते थे
Yeah.
कि it will take another 100 years or another whatever years for this to become reality, वो 20 years 10 years में हो रहा है, which is scary and exciting both.
Correct.
Right?
Well, there is this thing, right, that you always overestimate what can happen over 100 year or a big period of time, and you always underestimate what can happen over a smaller period of time. So let's say when you're asked that what will happen in the next 10 years, 5 years, you will always underestimate
nice.
it a
That's a very
little,
nice thing.
but you will always overestimate what will happen in a 100-year time or a 200-year time.
It's very nice, yeah.
Okay, this brings me to one final thing that I wanted to ask you before we close the podcast.
Okay.
You've covered so many things. This is around agility of having access to data, or essentially, again, this is a very selfish topic that I wanted to talk to you about in general, that do you feel that the velocity at which you derive insights, because my belief with Alcom data or the way things are heading in AI is that eventually we will reach a world where every person in an organization is a data person. The way we consume data today will change dramatically, and I am trying to imagine a future where you do not necessarily need Excels or Power BI dashboards, and it is almost everything on natural language. There will be standard things that you will have that will be there as a dashboard, for example, but then most of it will be natural language, right? So that is the world that I'm imagining. Now, that does not really make sense, in my opinion, for a few roles within my organization. If I were to talk about, let's say there is a procurement person, right? Now that procurement person is essentially responsible for buying at a very cheap rate from the market. He will do an RFQ, he or she will do an RFQ, they will understand what are the prices, they will understand what was the historical price, and they will try to do that. Now, I am dumbing it down a lot. There are a lot more nuances to procurement in general, understanding the scope of work or XYZ. But in general, I feel that velocity of getting insights, do you feel it is something that is important for you as a user? And again, there are two types of importance, right? One is a good to have important, one is like कि हाँ मिल गया free में तो I will take it, versus for example I will have to pay a certain amount of money per month for this, right? So where do you think you are as a growth manager in a company? Do you feel that the velocity at which you get insights is going to be something that is important to you?
ठीक है. So I don't know how this fits perfectly in my most biggest pain point currently. Somehow it fits very well because right now I am literally facing this as my biggest challenge, right? Biggest pain point, my biggest Achilles heel right now is the velocity of insights or data for any intervention that I plan in my current role, right? And right now, if you are making or doing anything, right? And it's not just right now, strike that. At any given point of time, if you're planning something, making any intervention, if you're not able to track and measure the impact or the goodness or the detrimental impact of it, you are just going around uh, doing things on your hunch,
Exactly.
playing it by the ear,
Yeah,
which does not make sense, right?
Correct.
It's not a scalable way. It's not an accurate way. It's not even a directionally correct way to go about it, right? So, like I mentioned, speed, not just in terms of what I was mentioning earlier, in terms of delivering a value proposition to our consumers, but the velocity at which you are making decisions inside
Exactly.
the company or anywhere, like as a businessman, as a person who's running his or her own business, as somebody who's part of an organization and doing his or her job or whatever, right? I think that velocity is very critical because there will always be pressure, first of all, to measure it
Right.
and measure it accurately and derive insights from it.
Correct.
Secondly, as we grow impatient, as our consumers grow impatient, there are internal stakeholders also who are growing impatient when it comes to assessing the goodness or the impact of whatever interventions that you are planning or implementing in any of in your roles of whatever, as an employee or as a business person or whatever, right? So I think I'll share my experience itself, right? So there's so much of effort that goes into tracking whatever interventions that a growth team does, and there are plethora of interventions, experiments, projects that are made live by a growth team in any organization, right? Because literally a growth team's job or core purpose is to grow the organization, right?
Correct.
So day in day out you're implementing so many things and you need a very close eye on what is the impact of those things.
Correct.
You are handicapped if you don't have those systems in place that track it effectively, efficiently, and give you accurate insights, right? Right now I face that bottleneck because as a growth team we have so many interventions. We are a team of, let's say, 10-15 people. Everybody is driving certain objectives, right? And within startup it's not like a corporate or a legacy where, let's say, 4 people are working on one problem statement. One person is working on maybe 4 problem statements, right? And there is so much that everybody is doing, but there is only so much. This is a human capability or capacity an analytics person or an analytics team can turn around in a given time frame. Right? We are all humans, and number crunching is something that drains us as humans. We only have some limited capabilities, right? There are certain individuals on this planet who can do that with that much rigor on a regular basis without feeling fatigued. The point I'm trying to make is that that data part is so critical for every function, and with speed coming in, it's not just for external consumers, it's for internal decision making as well, right? The velocity at which you are making decisions depends on how quickly you are able to assess the goodness of your interventions. What are your planned interventions? What is the outcome of it, right? And in startups, there is a simple funda: fail fast, succeed faster.
Exactly.
Right? So for you to fail fast, you need insights faster.
Exactly.
Right? You need the results also fast, and then you take, then again as a human being, I have to make sense of the data. Okay, now this is tracking is in place. Now I have to sift through a lot of data and make sense of, okay, what is working, what is not working, what was my success metric, what was my check metric, whether I've fared on this front, where is it going, in what direction, do I continue with this experiment or not, right? There is so much manual intervention required, and we as individuals fear that AI will replace our jobs. I don't know if it will replace my job or not, but if AI is able to give me those insights way quicker, then it's making my life a hell lot of easier.
Exactly, right? It removes the redundant parts of your life. SQL query writing should be a redundant part. Adding pivots to an Excel should be a redundant part, right? The part that you should be focusing on is that how do I, for example, I'm a custodian of my buyer. This particular thing is dropping off. This is the reason it is dropping off. This is what I do to get to it, right? So that is the actual meaty part that you have to do. And if there is a tool that extends to you that is able to allow you to do that, I think with AI coming in, right, there are so many tools that will step in into this, and there already are a lot of tools, and fair. I think that makes sense.
I think the thing is, it's a revolution, like I mentioned earlier. And another thing that I was taught early on in my life, revolution के साथ क्या है? Either you evolve and change with the revolution, or you get left behind. It's as simple as that.
Correct.
As painful as it may seem to a lot of people, कि AI will replace jobs or I am becoming redundant. I think for us as humanity to progress, to move to better things
Right.
as a whole, this has to happen and we need to adopt
Yes,
to it, right? So I think this is definitely the direction in which we are headed. Like I mentioned, two things, speed and AI. AI, both these things might seem very trendy right now, but these are here to stay and for very good reason, in my opinion.
Fair. That's a very good end to the podcast. And I'll put a brand placement here by Alchem Data today.
Oh, Nacho!